Hello and welcome to Kicking Tires. My name is Jimmy,
And I'm Justin.
and today we got some vehicles that are slowly dying off here. Because the first one we want to talk about here is the Toyota Avalon. So the
The Toyota
auto
what?
that so the Avalon is like the big boy Camry, right? You got the Camry as your regular family sedan, and if you let's be honest, if you're older, you're gonna buy the Avalon. Like that's kind of how they market it. But it's dead after 2022. It's first reported by Automotive News as they learned that Toyota has told its suppliers that, well, the Avalon is getting cut. And then some other people like Car and Driver and whatnot um, were able to verify this information. So yeah,
Mhm.
2022. After that, no more Avalon. But let's be honest, the Lexus ES exists. It's a better car, and it's only a little bit more.
Mhm.
So, you know what? I don't think anyone's too worried or too upset about this.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's missing the Avalon. The Avalon is in a weird spot because it's a full-size sedan but a non-luxury brand. Um yeah, it just doesn't make much sense. Buick kind of is in there. Uh does Chevy even still make a full size? Uh
No idea. Is it?
yeah, it's the least relevant segment of in the whole market. And with the latest one, I think they it's just weird too. Like they went a bit. It's pretty polarizing as far as the styling goes.
What
And
do
I
you
think
mean?
the traditional Avalon buyer, it's all grill. Like the bumper has less painted area than grill.
Well, this is
Like
only for the TRD model
yeah, it's just a.
or the
I
XSE.
think it's not like the Camry is a small car by any means, and that's kind of the issue is there's nothing wrong with the Camry, and the Camry can still exist. Um, but yeah, the Avalon just doesn't bring much more to the table, and that's always been the case, I think. Ever since maybe, you know, after maybe the second gen Avalon, it's just kind of a slightly bigger Camry,
Mhm.
and just the tooling. And we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. It's just like models are getting killed off because it's it's hard to spread your R&D budget that thin. Rather put more research and money towards a model that does sell than spend all this money marketing and developing a car that no one really
Really
buys.
doesn't. Yeah, doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. It's in a market that, I mean, who's buying sedans? Who's buying big sedans
Yeah.
like that? Really, no
You know,
one.
luxury sedans, yes, like there's still room for like the S classes of the world, the 7 series, the Rolls Royce, but eh, it's no longer a status symbol. You know, you're not one upping uh, the Camry really in any way. You pull up in an Avalon, it's just like okay, well you got the big Toyota sedan. Doesn't
You know, I saw an Avalon on the road the other day, and I was like, it's pretty good looking. Went on Craigslist, as you know, I generally do that. You look at something, you're like, that's pretty good looking. You go to Craigslist right away and you see if there's anything that's used for a good deal. There's like no Avalons for sale.
yeah. When they do come up, they're not that strong because the demand is low.
Yeah,
I do yeah, out of the Toyota lineup, that one depreciates quite a bit more than the others. It's a lot easier to sell a Corolla or a Camry. A dealer doesn't have to worry about that sitting on their lot,
hmm,
whereas an Avalon, it's not a quick moving car.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. But that's really all we got to talk about for the Avalon. Let's move on to something a little bit more exciting because we got to talk about the next thing here, which is the NSX is getting killed off as well. So for 2022, there will be no. Right, nope. Sorry, the 2022 is the last year of the
Mm,
NSX. So no more after 2022. So no 2023 model.
yeah.
So Honda or Acura tease us with this Type S footage here,
Mm,
and I mean, it looks basically like the current NSX. I mean, I see a little bit of,
Slight aero package.
yeah, there's slight aero package and stuff like that. Not too much information has kind of been
Yeah.
released, but here's what we do know: there's 350 units worldwide. 300 of them is going to the US. 15 is coming to Canada. That's just how big of a market the US is compared to Canada.
Mm.
The global debut will be on August 12th. If you want to order one, August 18th would be the day to do that. And this is so what they say is it's going to increase the performance. So every little bit, like it's going to have more power, quicker acceleration, sharper handling, and a more emotional driving experience.
Mm.
That's straight out of Acura's blurb. So we'll see, what it actually means and what it looks like. I'm kind of curious, what this actually means for the NSX. Being a Type S model, I mean, the last NSX Type S really wasn't that special. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The NA2 Type S just wasn't. NA1 Type S was pretty good, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
We need a Type R is what we really want.
Yeah, but they're
But
not
it's
going to
not
give us that.
happening.
No.
Yeah, 350 units. That is quite exclusive. But I don't know if that's them being conservative with how many they'll really sell, because there's just too much competition, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm there's the R8, there is the McLarens,
GTR.
anything from Porsche in this price range. You can kind of get into a Huracan for not that much more, at least a base model. And so, I mean, that's always been the struggle for the NSX. It doesn't have as much of an exotic appeal as a lot of the European makes, and doesn't I don't know, it doesn't excite people from a performance perspective like a GTR would. Um,
Yeah. So
yeah, and
power figures wise, like numbers wise, I mean it's 573 horsepower is what the regular NSX does. So we're expecting this to be a little bit higher, maybe like 600 or so.
mhm,
But even at those numbers, like it doesn't compete well with like the GTR because let's be honest, GTR is one of its biggest competitors, right? It was before and it is now. But the price point is quite different and how it delivers that power is quite different as well. And on the track, we've seen from many different sources the GTR outperforms the NSX time and time again.
mhm. I think the type of person that's going to buy this is that speculative buyer that okay, it's 350 units, it's a rare car, it's not a popular car, and so 20 years down the road this thing is going to be worth quite a bit, and especially because it's a Honda Acura, um, people aren't maybe as concerned about long-term reliability and maintenance costs compared to those more exotic makes that I mentioned earlier. I think that's that fanboy is going to buy this car, but I don't know if any of us really appreciate it that much.
No,
Yeah,
you're absolutely. I think you're right on there. I think a lot of people are buying this to sit in a garage, waiting for it to
yeah,
appreciate and then
it's a
selling
great
off.
museum piece, but it's not something I want to drive or be seen in. Like for the money, I don't know. I just don't.
Well,
We don't know what the price is, but we
I
know what
mean,
the regular. They're
if you
discounting the NSXs too.
if you watch the Fast Nine or F9, you would know that Tyrese as well as was it just Tyrese getting out of the NSX? I
I
can't
haven't
remember now.
watched F9,
Oh,
so I don't
oh,
know.
never mind. Spoiler alert. They have a they have an NSX in there, so you can be
Yeah,
as cool as that. It's all about family.
yeah.
Let's move on from the NSX and move on to something that we can probably afford. Subaru announced that there's a new member of the Wilderness family and it's on its way. So Subaru has teased us with basically two photos. One of a Subaru Wilderness badge that's on the front door, And another one that is on Car and Driver's website that I saw, and that's off the front door and front fender and wheel.
Mm,
They didn't say exactly what it is, but Car and Driver says it's possibly the Ascent.
yeah.
I'm like 99% sure they're wrong.
Yeah,
I
kicking
think it's
tires. You've heard it here first. Kicking tires says this is probably not the Ascent.
it's most likely the Forester. So there's a few reasons why I believe it's a Forester and not the Ascent. So from the photos that they teased, the mirror is mounted on the door, which both the Forester and the Ascent does, but it's mounted over that top crease body line. The Ascent top body line is below the mirror, whereas the Forester is on the mirror. So that's why I believe it's the Forester and not the Ascent. And Dustin, you were saying the tire size as well, right?
Yeah, I was looking at the tire in the picture. Obviously, we don't know exactly what tire that is, but looking at the previous wilderness concepts, they don't go too big with the tires. It's not like a big upgrade there. But the big difference between the Forester and Ascent, even though the Ascent is not physically that much bigger, they're 2 inches. There's 2 inches between them in terms of overall tire diameter. Like that's huge. That's the difference between a mid-sized truck and a full-size truck. That's the difference between like a compact, crossover and a full-size crossover. So the normal Forester has a 27.5 inch tire, 28 inch, depending on how you like to refer to them as, and the Ascent has just under a 30-inch tire. And looking at the picture, it doesn't feel like a 30-inch tire. Um, and also the Forester. The other thing that I really noticed was that body molding on the door, which one the Crosstrek doesn't have. So they're saying it could be one of these models. The Crosstrek doesn't have. The Ascent has a molding on the door, but the Ascent's molding where it starts, you know, I don't know what you call it, the incline or the little crease on that side molding. The normal one starts right at the front edge of the door, so right at the opening of the door. Whereas the Foresters, it goes a few inches and then it kicks up, and that's something that's different between these two cars. So I don't know, kicking tires maybe smarter than Car and Driver. Maybe we know more about cars than Car and Driver. Who knows? We'll know when they confirm this. It's an interesting strategy on Subaru's part. Is like, okay, well, which model is in reality? I think they're gonna wilderness their whole lineup.
Right.
Yeah, but
It
it's
it
just like which one's next. So they're
it
they're kind of
totally makes
keeping us
sense.
guessing. Because then you're like, you know what? And because when it does come out to be a Forester, like, what would be sick? An Ascent Wilderness, and then boom, next thing you know, next press release is Ascent Wilderness.
And then a
Um,
BRZ.
BRZ Wilderness. Yeah.
So
The Crosstrek, obviously, obvious candidate. Legacy sedan needs a.
no. No.
Damn it! I thought I could slip that one in there.
No, no, no one's gonna want that. I know you want that, but they're not gonna make it just for you.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, the wilderness pack on the Outback, which is already available now, it's kind of their more off-road orientated version of the Outback. So it's the same 2.4 liter turbo Boxer 4 engine, but it has a higher ride height, better gearing. The transmission is actually out of the Ascent itself for better gearing and just a little bit more heavy duty. And there's a whole bunch of gold parts and bits on it
The
to
blue and gold.
the blue and gold to let you know that it's a 555 rally car. But I think the Forester fits the wilderness theme a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, Shorter front and rear overhangs. It's going to be a little bit more capable than the Ascent, but I'm sure like you said, we're probably going to see that in the future.
Yeah.
What I want to know is would they put that 2.4 in the Forester? Because the
Mm.
Forester right now, you can get it only with that one engine option. And previously, you had the XT, and the XT was great. my cousin has an XT. He loves it. He's like, I love my XT. Plenty
How
of
is it
power.
on gas though?
He's averaging around 10 liters for 100 kilometers.
No.
Mixed driving. He's
Okay.
very light with his foot. Like he sent me a
Yeah.
photo and he was using like 2% throttle, like nothing.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking if this wilderness just elevates the Forester a little bit,
Hmm.
because the standard engine, I think it only has about 170, 180 horsepower. I can't remember
Yeah.
exactly. The XT would definitely give the Forester just a little bit more power to make it just
Yeah.
that much
And
better.
arguably, the Forester is the model out of the Subaru lineup that needs it the most, right? The Outback does not have any real competition because there's no long roof
What?
wagons out there anymore,
The Volvo V60 cross country, my friend.
which is like 20 grand more. The Crosstrek is like a leader because it also doesn't have any real competition in that size, and it's such a good
The
package, I think.
the Matrix all-wheel
But
drive.
the Forester
Just
has a
ignore me.
lot of these off-road trim specials, right? So we've got the Rav4 TRD trail, TRD and trail models.
Right.
We've got the Cherokee Trailhawk and Bronco, obviously with the Bronco Sport. All of them are an off-road special. Uh, and so that's why Forester used to have this market, right? Like that used to be their bread and butter. Is that this is the more off-road capable out of all the soft roader crossover type of cars. But then, everyone's just doing it for the look, to be honest. It's not about real capability, symmetrical all-wheel drive. Um, but that's why I think the Forester is really lacking in that department, and that's where they could really take advantage and offer something that people are gonna, buy again because if I'm shopping for this size of crossover and I want something that looks rugged, not necessarily, I'm not going to actually do Moab in it, but something that looks rugged, I'm probably not getting the Forester right now. But wilderness package, who knows? That might change it up a bit. Um, so yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to do the Forester. I know Ascent, we've got the Explorer with that package that we talked about in that cool green color. Um,
In my head, I'm thinking Eddie Bauer, but that's not it. I forgot what it was called.
no.
Timberland.
Timberland. Yeah, it's not a bad name, but yeah.
Yeah,
So there's a little bit going on there, but I don't think the Ascent has that direct competition quite as much as the Forester does, because this mid-size segment is more, or is it even mid-size? It's like a small mid-size.
it's compact mid-size these days. I don't
Yeah,
even know what's called.
yeah. I mean, these cars are getting so big, but the people tend to have a younger, more active lifestyle. They're gonna want that off-road appearance, whereas the Ascent is more for like middle-aged family
It's for
car.
families.
It's an
Yeah.
8-seater. It's got a three seat configuration on the third row.
Yeah.
So it's a big SUV. It doesn't really make sense. So again, kicking tires maybe ahead of the game as far as which model Subaru
Yeah.
is really teasing here.
So don't listen to Car and Driver ever.
Yeah,
We're better.
we're
Um,
better. We'll filter it. We process it. Our team of two.
I might need a lawyer just to get us out of this situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is a really good call for Subaru. The Wilderness Pack on the Outback, like we talked about this outside of our podcast, and I'm like,
Mhm.
you know what? It's interesting. It definitely is interesting. And you're like,
Mhm.
well, the Explorer Timberline was only like a few $1,000s more, and you get a much bigger
Yeah, it
vehicle,
just looks
right?
cooler.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but the Forester, to me, the Forester is a better size because that's the type of
Oh.
vehicle. Like
The
my family of
Forester is an
three,
awesome car. Like it's an Amazing package.
The visibility in Subaru products is bar none. Like you sit inside, it's like a glass greenhouse around you. You see everything.
It's
My
kind of
wife
dorky.
loves, yeah. Well, pros and cons, right? My wife loves sitting in it because she's like, I can see everything from here. But I'm
Yeah,
like, I don't want a Forester. I don't want the new one. I want
but
the
we
old
might now.
XT. But we
We'll see
might
how
now.
this. We might, because it
Please,
just
Subaru, just put in the XT motor. That's what it
the
needs.
XT and all the extra body cladding,
I,
the
I don't
LED fog lights.
I don't necessarily need the gold bits, but if you're putting it on anyways, that's fine.
Yeah,
I can buy a can of Plasti Dip for $5.
$18.
All right, let's move on from that. Let's talk a little bit about McLaren here. I wasn't able to get the McLaren press information here for this, but they launched this
This is
Albert.
a MSO. It doesn't sound like much. Okay, this is the the most underwhelming name of any supercar to come out this year. The McLaren Albert, but it's an MSO package, and the Albert name is actually it's actually of historical significance for McLaren, right? So it's just a very like average sounding name. Like it's not. That's the difference, right? Like when you have Maserati can get away with calling their car the four door, but McLaren cannot. You know, Albert is like, okay. I think because it's our first language or our native tongue that we think that this name is. No, let's face it. Even if English is not your first language, Albert doesn't sound like much.
Albert means
Doesn't sound
nothing.
very exotic. Yeah.
Absolutely
Um,
nothing.
So it is a commission by the McLaren of Beverly Hills, and so they've commissioned MSO to make this special vehicle. It's based somewhat off of the 720S, right? But it shares some body panels with the 720, namely the front. The rear is completely different. So it's this teardrop shape. It's a speed tail, so that means really high speed, uh, really slippery aerodynamics. It doesn't have a crazy aero that you see on like the Senna, and 1,070 horsepower hybrid powertrain. So it's going to be the fastest road car in terms of top speed that McLaren has made to this date. 250 miles per hour. If you're a numbers guy, that's kind of cool. Um, and yeah, the teardrop shape is supposedly the most aerodynamic and aerodynamically efficient found in nature. What is really special about this car? Well, actually, there's a lot that's really special. It's a three-seat configuration, so we're back to McLaren
McLaren
F1,
F1. Yeah.
right? The legend. That was the car for I think our generation. That was like the epitome of supercar that like we all lusted after, and I had so many models of the F1, and then McLaren just disappeared kind of from road cars for over a decade. Um, but yeah, this one, the Albert name is to reference the Albert Drive location that McLaren was based in when they made the F1 and a few other projects back then. This is back in the 90s. So that's where the Albert name comes from. The other really interesting thing is the colors. Okay, so the back half of the car is silver, the front half of the car is gray, which silver and gray. Okay, there's nothing that crazy there, but it's the silver, it's the magnesium silver from their 1992 Monaco Grand Prix car, and then the Ueno gray, that's from their 1995 Le Mans winning F1 GTR. And two-tone paint, okay, no big deal,
I,
but this is insane.
I want to talk about the paint here because
Yeah,
I was reading this and I was like, that's crazy.
is that a typo? It's like
Because
is what we think.
in total it said that it needs 12 weeks to apply the paint to this complex gradient pattern.
Yeah,
12 weeks. So it's 2 weeks of time for 2 people to mask off the body itself.
Mhm.
Then it uses like 2 kilometers worth of tape. And then the actual paint process takes 6 weeks, then 4 weeks for the paint to dry, and then reassemble the car itself. In my head, I'm just thinking, okay, if you're painting a car in the process of 6 weeks, you're probably just taking a lot of breaks in between. Because let's be honest, 6 weeks to paint a car, that's a long time. Like,
How much does that cost? Like that is, I'm just thinking from like a budget perspective,
yeah,
how much that has to cost because you don't like walk in and like it's not like writing a book or something. You can't just I'll hop on the keyboard, type it up. This took me several weeks. You have to like you know it's gotta be like dust sealed and whatever. And so it's it's a 3 month process and they take off the doors and the body panels and then they put them all back together. um it's insane. And just to describe it for our listeners who are tuning into the audio version of our podcast, so basically the front half is great, the rear half is silver, but it's a gradient look. So it's not just like a sharp crease and then a body line where uh, you know part of it is gray and part of it is silver. And then they have these stripes that go on. They kind of mimic the aerodynamic wind tunnel testing appearance. So it's a pretty cool. Again, it's like it's not that exotic of a color. It's just gray and silver. It's about as least exotic as it gets, but then it is a pretty cool process. And I think it does kind of remind me of some of those liveries from the 90s, like the BMW
mm,
V12 with the
yep.
stripes and yeah, the gradient liveries we saw back in the day. So I do like that a lot about this. I'm
Just
not a big fan of Speedtail in general. Like I think proportionally it's not a pretty look, but obviously there's a function to that to make it as slippery as possible. And the
can
only
you?
weird thing is the wheels.
Well, I'll let you finish first.
Yeah, so the front wheel has this little, should I say, aero cover.
Kind of an arrow cover, yeah.
It's some kind of aero cover, obviously to reduce drag. Um, and that kind of hints to my second point, which is the rear wheel looks like very similar to what's on a lot of the Tesla products, the turbine wheels that you'll see on the Tesla products. I don't know. You guys can check it out yourself. Let me know if you think this looks like a Tesla, uh, either Model Y performance wheel or yeah, it just the turbine appearance is, you know, we've seen it, and it's just there's better ways to do it, I think, and that is my only critique of this car. Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, all right. So imagine yourself as an owner of this Albert. All right. So you're at your fancy dinner, one of a colleague or friend of yours comes by, like, hey, Justin, I haven't seen you in a while. What are you driving these days? Now, what you're gonna have to start this conversation with is, okay, wait. So before I tell you what car I'm driving, I just want to let you know about what it actually is. Because if you just say, "Oh, Albert,"
I'm riding my Albert.
it's like, "Oh, that's very interesting, Dustin. Oh, sorry, someone's calling me from the other room. I have to leave now." That's not a conversation starter.
Disappear into the bush. Um, Okay,
What?
let's take a close up look of the front end, the third picture there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you can really see the pinstriping that's going on this. That's where the 2 kilometers of masking tape comes in, I think. I
Well,
love it because the
when
striping, it's so cool because it's on the front it's a lighter stripe and then on the back it's a darker stripe, and it's really cool.
it certainly is really cool. And at your dinner party, you can tell your friends that your Albert has stripes on him.
Yeah, your Albert. That's
Okay,
just an
it
awful
took
name.
it took you 12 weeks to get stripes on your Albert.
Hmm. Yeah, that 12-week process. Yeah.
Let's move on into the next thing here. So Lincoln has developed a concept car because they're running out of things to do. Um, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I may not be that nice to Lincoln just because like their cars are like they're fundamentally they're not bad in any way, but they need to be better in order for them to sell and in order for Lincoln to succeed. And I just don't
Yeah.
think Lincoln's at a stage right now that they can.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about this a little bit before the show. So what we have here is the Aviator Shinola concept. So Shinola originally was a shoe shine company that died in about the 60s, and it was reborn as a luxury American brand. So they're specialized in watches and other handmade luxury goods, um,
I have the
jewelry.
I have the website pulled up here.
Yeah, it's like classic American luxury. You'll see these at I think Nordstrom carries it, and then they have various stores across North America. Actually, I don't even know if they have any in Canada. It's a very American brand. It's about American luxury, right? It's not meant to be, you know, those high-end European brands. It's not an Hermes. It's not a Prada. It is what it is. You know, we're not here to compete with the Bentleys and the Rolls Royces of the world. This is, kind of a homey type of luxury that I kind of appreciate. Like it feels like you step into like, a high-end study in a nice mansion in somewhere in middle America that, it's got really nice brown leather that's really dark, and it's very much like a big lazy boy kind of. And then they put suede light suede accent on it, light cream color accents throughout the dash, and a bit of striping going on. I think it looks pretty good, but you seem to have the complete opposite opinion with this interior.
So okay, uh, okay, let's talk about the interior first because we're already talking about that. The brown leather just reminds me of an old couch because that's the brown leather on an old couch.
That's the point. It's mid-century modern.
Yeah, but like it's on the 2022 Aviator. Like, what kind of mid-century car is an Aviator? It's so far from that. It has a
But that
plug-in
is the
hybrid system.
epitome. This is Mad Men, right? Like
So
Mad Men, the type of leather and the theme and the smells that you get from this type of leather, like it's, I don't know, I think it's pretty special. And
I
stores
I
still exist that push
I
this kind of aesthetic.
okay, so I'm a t-shirt and jeans kind of guy. That's like my entire wardrobe. So if it comes to style and stuff like that, I have zero to say on this kind of matter. So to me, it really doesn't make sense. But I can appreciate it when it's actually quite nice. And the details on this Aviator, I gotta admit, is quite nice because I'm a huge fan of copper accents and they use it all over. So, like on the push button shifter, there's copper accents there. There's copper accents on the outside next to the Aviator badge, on the grill, on the wheels. It's definitely a very pretty vehicle, but it is a concept after all. So, like, you know, chances of them actually making this probably not too
Zero.
high. Um, if they made a special edition car, would it sell better? I don't think so. I mean, if we look at special edition cars like Fiat 500, the Gucci edition, how well did that sell? How well did that, kind of go well with the Fiat 500 brand? Probably not so much. Like,
Mhm.
I just don't think like a lot of times car companies and they these manufacturers like kind of collab on something like this, and when they make the product they try to ingest a lot of it into it. This doesn't go really the way that you expect it, um and because of that it's just like it's not that great or that much of a difference compared to the regular model, which costs like $10,000 less.
I just want to smell this car.
Okay,
Like that's like
even
it
the
looks like it
even the
would
regular
smell really
Aviator
good.
smells really good. The quality of leather that Lincoln uses is really nice.
And their seats are so nice. That's why it's my
Yep.
background this week because this seat looks so comfortable and like this is a car I want to spend time in.
Yeah,
Um
you're definitely not wrong. If you have $95,000, that's exactly what you can get.
yeah.
I don't. I sound like I'm hating it, but I don't. I appreciate the Aviator. I really do. I just don't feel like it's is as good compared to a lot of the European rivals. And when it comes to American luxury, I'm thinking like 60s and 70s type American luxury. That's what I like. Not current American luxury because it doesn't feel like there's much to it. If that makes sense.
The issue with Lincoln, I guess, is the new Jeep products.
Mm.
And then there's Cadillac and Lincoln is just like a very forgotten brand, but that's the point of these concepts, right? Is to kind of bring in this audience, get people talking about them again, and just realizing, okay, what is this brand really about? Because prior to this, I don't even know what an Aviator is. Apparently, it's based off of an Explorer. Um, yeah, like back in the day, I would be more familiar with their product offerings. Now they have 4 crossovers that all look very similar, aside from maybe the Navigator. Uh, but it does get me thinking about the brand a bit more, and I think that's why they do these kind of publicity stunts. No, it's not for anyone to buy it, but it's just like, oh, check this out, and then you kind of start to appreciate, the car underneath and the brand behind it, and it kind of tells you what their direction is, right? They're going for this. We're not competing with BMW or Mercedes or Audi. Like they go for a very understated type of luxury. And here we're going for, this is the lobby of such and such high-end hotel in New York. That is kind of the vibe that I get from this. Um, and yeah, no, I think Lincoln has a bit of a ways to go to really catch up to its competitors, but I don't know. I like this, and yeah, I want to smell it.
So when the Aviator concept came out, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I was drooling over it. I loved it. And then when it did come out, and I got my first time to sit in it, I was like, this is amazing. And then I got my first press car in it. Actually, did I get a press car? No, a friend of mine had a press car, and I sat in it. And then we went for a drive, and it just didn't feel like it was worth the money that you're paying. That was the biggest thing with it. But like it's like if you want to stand out, don't buy an X5 because everyone has one. If you buy an Aviator, no one's gonna know what you're driving, and it looks expensive.
Yeah.
It actually does look like there's a lot of good pieces on the outside. The chrome on it,
Mhm.
the headlights, it dazzles. It really does. Um, and it's gonna stand out. So like if you like that, the Aviator is definitely a good choice.
Yeah. To me, the Escalades, like the Cadillacs, they really push the technology. They're a little bit more forward and cutting edge with their stuff. We got Super Cruise and
On
all sorts
on
of
the Escalade,
cameras.
absolutely, but on the competitor to this, the XT6, no, because
Mm.
the XT6 is the 3-row GM front
Traverse.
engine exactly to traverse the Buick, whatever it's called. Like it's just
Oh,
that
the
lineup.
Buick is nice.
The Buick got nice.
Yeah,
It
the
wasn't
new Buick. It was at the Avenir.
the Avenir, the top model, yeah.
Yeah, that thing is. I saw one. Is that what it's called? Avenir.
So Avenir is a trim, but it's called I
Oh,
think it's
okay.
called the
The
Enclave.
Enclave.
Yeah,
Okay. Oh
like
no,
it,
the interior is pretty meh.
it They do okay, but like I had a chance to drive the XT6. I was so underwhelmed. Like the 3.6 V6 that's under the hood, or 3 point something V6 that's under the hood, it wasn't great. It was front wheel drive base. It just didn't have the power. The interior wasn't that spacious. Like the XT6 was just, it really wasn't that good, in my
Hmm.
opinion. But the Aviator, it's so much better than that. So I was actually quite surprised because we dug up these numbers just before the show that the XT6 and the Aviator actually sells the equivalent, around 22 or 23,000 cars in the US in the past year.
Hmm.
So kind of weird. Like I
It's
would think the Aviator
probably a
would sell a lot
pricing
more.
thing. Just that being a front wheel drive base crossover, essentially, it's probably cheaper to make, and so even though you're getting kind of the same amount of room, I think that the XT6 undercuts the Aviator a bit.
Let's see
Um,
here.
but because this is an Explorer at the end of the day,
Hmm.
it's
XT6 starts at 61,000.
that's not too far off.
No.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
GM has too many models. I feel like.
Yeah, it's a 3.6 liter with 310 horsepower. It's
Yeah,
9 speed auto. It weighs 4,700 pounds.
yeah, and I mean, looking at this Aviator, I'm like, okay, this is a good step up from an Explorer.
Oh, huge. Huge.
Yeah, and
Huge.
nothing wrong with the Explorer. I think for 40 something, 50 to start, it's a fair package.
Mhm.
But then this is like, I get it now because that was the issue back in the 90s and 2000s is you can't just slap a luxury badge on a car, give it leather seats, bit of contrast stitching and fake wood trim and call it a day, right?
Well, yeah, the old Aviator, that was exactly
Exactly.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They throw on a bit of chrome, a bit of fake wood, and then they call it a day. Yeah.
Most they did was change out the headlights and chrome bumper. But this
Mhm.
is like the exterior structure is basically all Aviator. I don't think it shares anything with the Explorer.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
the
a
fact that
platform.
I didn't even know this was an Explorer underneath, I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, let's end this off with another thing that's dying.
Yeah, another defunct sedan
Oh,
that I know you've always liked it.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, ever since your friend got one way back, and it's
Yeah.
still the same generation.
It's still the same. Like 9 years or something like that. No changes really. I mean, no changes to like the fundamentals of it. The exterior is different. The interior is different.
Get the turbo, get the all-wheel drive.
No all-wheel drive.
Oh,
Mazda 6, no
right,
all-wheel drive. Front-wheel
Mazda
drive only.
6.
Yeah. So the Mazda 6 is getting killed off in Canada and as well as in the US. 2021 is the last model year of it, but it's still living on in other parts of the world. So like the UK, Japan, and whatnot, you can still get it. So really, no worries for the rest of the world. But here in Canada, it just doesn't make sense to sell a sedan because no one buys them. We literally every week we say the exact same thing about sedans and how no one buys them because it's true. But the Mazda 6, there's a lot of good stuff about it, but there's a couple of not so great things about it. So this 6 that I got was the Kuro edition, which is very similar to the Carbon edition that you can get in the US, which is kind of like one below the Signature. So you still get the turbo motor, so like 250 horsepower, 320 pound-feet of torque. So it's good power. The inside, you still got leather, like it's still very luxurious. You get heated and cooled seats, perfect interior, and really good driving dynamics because it is a Mazda after all. But the biggest thing is something that we talked about long before we even started the show is the fundamentals of Mazda and all their cars is the size.
Zoom, zoom.
It's the size of the car itself. So Mazda 6 is actually quite narrow of a vehicle because it's designed in Japan. While it is a world vehicle, the main like market for it was in Japan. And those of you that have been to Japan, you know how narrow those streets are. So the Mazda 6 is actually quite narrow compared to like the Accord or any of the Hyundai Kia products. So when you're sitting in there, if especially if you have like three in the back, It's quite compact. But also because of that, it looks like a longer vehicle than it should, but it really isn't any
Hmm.
longer than its competitors. I really, really love the Mazda 6. The way it drives, the way it handles, the way it looks. I think all new Mazda products just have a very luxurious look to them, kind of that high end look. But yeah, it's gone, dead, no more.
I have zero interest in the Mazda 6. That's like it's such a I don't know, jack of all trades
But for
kind of
you,
car.
like a sedan doesn't do it for you
I
anyways. Like
know
you wouldn't
I
buy an
just look at
Accord.
well, if I
No,
had to, I would not buy like if I had to buy a mid-size sedan, it would probably be like a Camry hybrid or
yeah,
something like that.
because it's a hybrid system and it's efficient.
Yeah,
That's
because it's
why
what I
else.
want in a mid-size sedan. I want room, I want efficiency, I want it to be quiet,
Yeah,
and that's all I really want. But the Mazda 6 from day one, I did not really care for this car because it went for driving dynamics that it couldn't necessarily deliver on because it is fundamentally still a front bias
but
large sedan.
like the driving dynamics of it, like driving it just around town, like um highway exit ramps. I think that's like the perfect place just to have a little bit more fun. And the Mazda 6, that's where it delivers like the most fun. Like it's not great. It's not designed. Yeah, exactly. Quotes. It's not like it's not great. Like if you're going to be pushing it 10
Like
tenths.
I would rather like I guess the thing that bothers me the most is that this is not uh, a 340i or even an A4.
Oh
That
no.
to me, like even an A4 2.0T, I get in that and I'm like, okay, I get this car. Like it does a lot of things really well and it's still kind of nice to drive. But to me,
But this
this
is
car
A3
doesn't.
pricing.
It is an A3 pricing, but it's an A3. I don't know. It's not even though it's physically almost 200 inches long. It's not much bigger than an A4
Yeah.
to me. Like that's like okay, if you're gonna go all front base, you know, transverse layout and all that, then at least give me the interior volume of a front base, what
Oh,
196-inch long vehicle.
Mazda's not great for packaging.
Yeah,
You're just not. I
yeah.
I personally had a CX3 before, as you know. The CX3 is longer than the HRV, but the CX3 has smaller front seat, rear seat, as well as cargo volume.
It's like where does it go?
It
Body cladding a
I'll
little
tell you
bit, but
exactly where it is. It's in front of the engine to the front of the car. That there's
the
so
front
much room there.
overhang. Yes.
There's so much room there, and behind the engine, between that
Yeah.
and the firewall, there's so much room there.
And okay, I guess my point is the Mazda 6 stands for the fundamental issue with Mazda is that they can get everything else right. You know, the steering is right, the engine is right, the interior materials are right, and they just miss that fundamental thing that makes a mid-size sedan, which is the practicality. Like you got to start with square one, and you got to get the basics right first before you start developing everything else.
So
And that is the deal breaker with Mazda.
yes, and that's not just the six. That's all Mazdas, because the CX5 is smaller than the rest. The Mazda 3 smaller than the rest. The CX9 smaller than the rest. Every
Smaller,
single
yeah, like I'm okay with the Mazda 3 being small because let's face it, that car is for people that occasionally use the back seat. But if I'm stepping up to a mid-size sedan like this, I'm using the back seat a little bit more, using the trunk a little bit more, and that's where it really matters. The Mazda 3, it can get away with it. The Miata can get away with it. The CX3 can get away with it. But
The
once you start
CX-3 is dead.
stepping up to the CX-9 and the Mazda 6, these are kind of like the big boys, and that's where you really need to deliver. And it's like, how can that be such an oversight? Even if we give you all the real estate in the world, right? This is a big sedan, and you still can't manage to get basically criteria number one down.
But I think it's in okay. So yes, it's smaller than the rest, but it's enough for a family. So I did put two child seats in this, just a regular infant seat as well as a convertible, and both fit without moving the front seats forward. So in terms of actual capacity, like holding them, it's
Mhm.
fine. But when you're inside, you don't like when you sit in the back of an Accord, you
Yeah.
feel like this is a large car.
You go like this, and then you go like this to the knees. Like you're like, holy crap, this is a
This
big car.
this is a big car, but in a Mazda 6, it feels like
Yeah,
the Accord from a few generations ago, where it just doesn't feel as large as the
yeah.
others.
This feels like a '06 Accord.
I love the '06 Accord.
I like it too.
I had three of them.
Yeah, but that is that should not be your benchmark in a car that you're making still in 2021. Um,
Well, let's be honest, because this car came out back in 2008, something like that. I don't know. I can't. It's been a while. So they started development probably not that long, not 2000. They probably started development around like 2010 or so for it because
yeah.
it came out in 2016, I think it was, or 2015. I can't remember. Something around there. But they probably started development a few years before that, and they're looking at sizing, and they're like, you know what, this is about right. Because the
Yeah.
Mazda 6 before this was actually a little bit bigger, but they actually like went a little bit more compact in it because, well, the first Mazda 6 was a good size for most people.
Oh, the
Then they went bigger.
hatchback and the wagon, that one was awesome.
Well, it's awesome because there was a hatchback and a wagon, and because we love wagons because of no reason why we love wagons, we just do.
But at least they got, that one, they did the Speed 6, they did the wagon. Like, you just got so many flavors of
Yeah,
that car. And I think Mazda kind of messed up with this car, this generation Mazda 6, like, because it's now the death of this model, kind of, at least in North America.
yeah.
Um, and so it's like you killed it off by making something that is basically inferior to its competition.
Yeah, but I like I said, even if they made a pretty good product, I don't think the Mazda 6 will live on. Um, like no one has ever asked me recently. It's like, hey, what family sedan should I buy? No
Mhm.
one has asked me that. It's like, hey, I'm looking for a family vehicle.
Yeah.
CRV, RAV4. What do you think?
CX-5, yeah,
Yeah, like it's never a family sedan.
yeah.
And having a family now, I kind of get it. A hatchback or an SUV makes a lot of sense. Putting your child in and out, having everything that your child needs. Like, yeah, the a regular sedan, while it might have been perfect for families in the past, having just the amount of things that you need, strollers, diaper bag, extra diaper bag just in case, all the groceries that you need. Like a sedan just does not carry everything that you need.
Yeah,
It's too
and,
small.
and again with the length, because if you got a parallel park, this it doesn't have like the Forester. It doesn't have the visibility, and it's longer than a Forester while offering less space.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the fundamental issue with a sedan.
Mhm.
Um, no one cares about lateral G-force. Okay, just don't. I don't know why that is the obsession, and that is why I always take magazines with a grain of salt. Is that they skid pad test these cars, and they run. slaloms and stuff like that, and they do. I guess 60 to 0 kind of matters, but they do a lot of testing that just doesn't matter, and it's like they kind of like, oh, this car of the year. I mean, the Mazda 6 won a lot of awards, I think.
I think so. Yeah, I think back it was Car and Driver's like 10 best at one point.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
pretty
it's
sure.
it's definitely an award-winning vehicle. Um, and why?
It's
Ah,
I just think we're at a point where sedans don't make sense.
yeah,
So Mazda 6 just has to go.
so that's
Like
never really made sense, I
I
guess.
I'm sad about it because I like it as a platform. It's a good
Mhm.
driving car, but it's fine because the CX-5 is here and CX-5 is does
Yeah,
everything the Mazda 6 can do. Has the same engine, has
and
more
all-wheel drive.
space. Exactly. Like it gives you more for the same price, really.
Yeah,
So I'm not like totally upset by it. I'm sure Mazda will come up with better products to replace this because right now with the lineup with CX-30, CX-5, and CX-9, I think like a CX-7, something in the middle, will be just perfect to get us a little bit of a bigger SUV. But who knows? Something in the future.
yeah. We also need to see electrification more in
Hmm.
our North American products. It's just I don't know who is product planning for Mazda. They're just like, we gotta attack the niche.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
and it's like, how
they have
far are you gonna get targeting the niche?
they have that electric car coming out, the MX-30. But the MX-30 is very similar to like the BMW i3, which here in North America was kind of a flop because it just doesn't have the range that
It's
people are
it's
looking
just
for.
a it's just a regulations vehicle, right? They just need it to pass whatever emission standards, and then that's it. That's why the 500 electric exists. That's why the smart electric exists.
Existed, anyways, definitely doesn't
Yeah,
exist anymore.
yeah. That's why we had that. And so, yeah, like look 10 years in the future and see how your products are gonna age.
I'll send this over to Mazda Canada later just so that we can give them some tips
Yeah.
because we're better than Car and
We're
Driver.
we, we're better in car and driver. We're we know more about product planning than Mazda. Yeah.
Why don't we start a new car brand?
Hmm.
Hmm. Something in the works. Something in the works. In any case, I think that's about it for this week. Anything else you want to add on?
No, I think that's a good spot to end on.
Fantastic. Thank you everyone for watching, listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Bye for now.